Ladies and gentlemen, friends and enemies, I want to point out first that I'm very happy to be here.
You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth! And that's the bottom line, because when J Boney speaks, he speaks. What do you have to say about it? And how long has this been under the radar? Too long, if you ask me.
Real Talk Junkies with Jeffrey L. Boney.
Look, I'm not afraid to tackle the tough issues. Other people are scared to talk about this.
You don't know what you're doing.
Really? I mean, really? You had to take it there?
And now, here's the host of Real Talk Junkies.
What's good? What's up, RTJs? It's your boy, Jeffrey L. Boney, of course, coming to you live with another hot edition of Real Talk Junkies. Make sure you tune in every Wednesday, 12 noon Central Standard Time on the Facebook and the Instagram pages, Forward Times. Want to give a shout out to the Forward Times and Black and Forward. Always go check us out, forwardtimes.com. Check out the latest content and information. And also, always go check me out and engage with me at jeffreylboney.com. Again, that's jeffreylboney.com. And don't forget, we got the book dropping soon. Don't argue with me. That's right. You can't argue with me. You can't win. Anyway, make sure you tune in. Check that out. Man, it's on pre-sale right now. We'll have the information up at the end of the show. But getting right into it, we want to get into this conversation. Real interesting conversation today, as always. But I just want to start off by saying, since the Harris County Sheriff's Office was organized in March of 1836, there have been about 30 sheriffs elected and or appointed to serve Harris County in over 185 years. But check this out. There's never been an African-American sheriff appointed or elected in Harris County. I want to repeat that. 185 years in Harris County, never been an African-American sheriff appointed or elected in Harris County. Now, I'm over in Fort Bend County. We just had the second African-American appointed, Eric Fagan, in the history of Fort Bend County. But in Harris County, way more black folks, way more population, 185 years, never had an African-American either elected and or appointed. Now, we've seen in Harris County this wave of African-Americans coming into office. We even have a Harris County female county judge. A young county judge at that. I mean, we've had all these different things that have happened. We've had a majority white males. We've even had 2 Hispanic males that have served in the role of Harris County Sheriff, but never have we had any blacks assume that position. Now, it's no secret that Harris County Sheriff's Office has been known to have a history of racism against blacks, particularly in Harris County. But with the potential appointment of Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, who is my friend, by President Joe Biden to become the next director of the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is commonly known as ICE, this may be an opportune time for the Harris County leaders on Commissioner's Court to consider such a historic appointment of a qualified black person to assume that role and position. Today, to talk about it, I'm going to be speaking with Smokey Phillips. He's a Harris County Sheriff and also an AAPOL member. Captain Grady Castleberry, who's the president of the Afro-American Sheriff's Deputy League, and also former AASDL President Robert Ambery, to discuss the question of, is it time for a black sheriff in Harris County, Texas? Joining me today, like I said, is Smokey Phillips, Robert Ambery, and Grady Castleberry. Welcome to Real Talk Junkies, gentlemen. You may be muted. Some of you may be muted, so you may want to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? Definitely can hear you right now. Welcome to Real Talk Junkies.
Hey, thank you, Jeff. Thank you for the opportunity to express our concerns and our hopes of getting appointed the first African-American, a qualified African-American, to lead the Harris County Sheriff's Office. You know,
before you get into it, one of the things that I want to do is, because a lot of our listeners and viewers, they may be listening to this topic and be like, you know, why does it even matter? I mean, what's the big deal? I mean, okay, we never had an African-American sheriff. You know, there's issues with law enforcement all across the country, But I know that representation matters. And I think it's important also for us to talk about the backstory and go back a little ways in this 185 years of having 30 or some odd sheriffs assume the role of Harris County. There's a history of racism in Harris County Sheriff's Office, and I'd like for someone to chime in, whether that be you, Smokey, or the other two guests, to chime in and talk about the history of Harris County Sheriff's Office as it relates to African Americans.
I'll let Robert start. He had tenure as president before I took over, and I'll let Robert start with some of the history of the 80s that blacks happened to blacks, and I'll chime in as you go. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I wanted to thank you for letting me be here on the show. I appreciate that. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the history. Is that number one, I was under Jack Hurd, I was under Tommy Thomas, and I was under Cleveland Hagan. And Cleveland Hagan was definitely a racist of what things that he said. Like, I think one of the things he said was there wasn't a black in America that was capable of being on his command staff. So he had.
Hold on, repeat that. Johnny Cleveland Hagan, the former sheriff, Harris County sheriff, said what about black people?
That wasn't a black in America that could be
in America.
In America, they could be on his command staff.
Now, when you talk about command staff, can you describe who serves or functions in as part of a command staff?
The command staff would be the majors. They have that's the sheriff, then the majors, and then they have the captains under them. But the majors would be the command staff that under his leadership, no African American was qualified to be there.
Wow, that's and this was Johnny Cleveland Hagan, the former Harris County sheriff, who was elected year after year after year to serve in that particular capacity. And I know under his leadership, it was widely reported how a lot of African Americans, civilians, particularly, were jammed up in false charges, put on them, et cetera, et cetera. So to hear that come out, this was something that he said publicly, not behind closed doors.
Yes, it is. And also Tommy Thomas was, you have to understand that most of the blacks with the sheriff department back when I started, the whites only had GEDs and high school educations, where the blacks had at least 1 or 2 years of college. Like I was the only African American that had on my shift of 3 shifts that had a bachelor's degree. But Tommy Thomas had a high school education, and only on high school education, stating that we didn't need people with degrees at the sheriff department. Now that's how ironic and stupid that these sheriffs say things that are so way out there but these are our leaders. But he had white privilege, and that's the reason why he was put in that position.
Wow. Well, you know what? You made a point that these are our leaders, but these people were elected leaders. They some of them were appointed, but these primarily were elected leaders. The people of Harris County voted these people in year after year. So going back to you, and I'll have you chime in, Grady. If you could speak on, kind of the history of, as you see it, of Harris County Sheriff's Office as it relates to African Americans trying to, I guess, rise in the ranks.
Okay, can you repeat the question? I lost you all.
I said, if you could speak on your familiarity with the history of Harris County Sheriff's Office and how African Americans who are trying to rise in the ranks experienced racism and other challenges.
Okay, yeah, I came on in 1991 and as a jailer, and then I started in the jail and and worked my way up to being a certified deputy and a sergeant, and then a certified deputy, and then out to patrol. And it was tough. It was tough. You were competing against those of other races, to get out to patrol, and they were going out more frequently than we were. So I was even told that sometimes they had the answers to the test, that we wasn't privy to. Now I don't know how true it was, but that's some of the things that I heard.
That's very
but
true.
Certainly, so it was tough, but you just have to stay persistent and fight through it. And those are some of the things that I did. But you know, during that 91 through that 2000 era, it was tough.
Yeah. So Smokey, I know that you have been engaged and involved in this fight for a long time, been a very, very vocal advocate of Black leadership at the sheriff's office. And of course, now you're also on the front lines trying to champion having the Harris County commissioners appoint an African-American sheriff to this position. Now, assuming that Ed Gonzalez gets appointed and confirmed by the Senate to head up ICE. But can you speak on your experience in history? Amir, I know there have been lawsuits filed against the sheriff's office and all kind of stuff. Can you? I think it's important for a lot of the people that don't know what's been going on behind the scenes and internally to kind of get an idea and know the backstory.
Well, some of the history that Robert talked about is that, you know, during that time, Black and brown individuals were marginalized, and the phrase of racism, disparate treatment, and discriminatory practices flourished, which propelled multiple equal right lawsuits during the time when Robert was there as a member. It was a lawsuit filed in the 80s that allowed, that propelled many hirings of African Americans and Hispanics in the department, along with promotional things. But I say this, you know, they had, and Robert talked about some of the command staff people. We had a major named Major Carl Borchers, who would publicly in meetings talk about homosexuals and niggers. He would actually say that. I mean, talk about and he would actually say the word niggers to other command staff folks. Now, a lot of whites.
Now, wait a minute. This is what role did this person play? This is the person right under the sheriff.
Right.
This is one of the majors.
Yes.
His name was Major Carl Borchers, and he made those comments in meetings with other white commanders. Now, some of the white commanders didn't appreciate him saying that because they weren't into this racist and discriminatory practices and this bigotry thing in the department. They had good hearts, but this guy, Major Borchers, would actually say that during the meetings. Now, and secondly, you know, and one thing, the push for me is that if you listen to our calls for equality in the culture change, I think a good cultural change would happen if we had an African-American appointed sheriff that would send a message to the department that they're not allowing all this racist stuff. Now, I'm going to say this too, Jeff. Sheriff Gonzalez, Adrian Gonzalez, when he was sheriff, did a good job. And us pushing for an African-American sheriff appointment is no disrespect to Sheriff Gonzalez, who is still the sheriff of Harris County. He's still respected by our organization and many who support the idea of having an African-American sheriff. Sheriff Gonzalez is a good man. He has done a tremendous job in the sheriff's department. And like I say, our push for African-American appointment is no disrespect to him. I just want to get that out. Okay.
Or to the Hispanic community.
Or the Hispanic community. That's not no disrespect to anybody. And I'm just saying it because since I got involved with others in this movement, I have had numerous calls saying that, well, Smokey, why does somebody just qualify? And I'd say to them, well, that's true. Well, we have qualified African-American men. Castleberry has a master's degree. Castleberry's been to the FBI Academy. Castleberry's gone to the prestigious Purse Academy. So, and he worked his way up the ranks. So how much qualified can you be? He's in a leadership post now in 30 years at the sheriff's office. So, and then we have African Americans with PhDs. We have some with master's degrees. So the qualification factor is off the table.
What about Smoke? What about any African American female?
That we have African American females and males that were a list that was forwarded over to the commissioner's court. and those females are well qualified. You know, they have master's degrees, and one has a PhD and so forth. So it ain't a thing of qualifications now. And it ain't a thing about the best qualified person. It's about the black experience through the oppression in the sheriff's office throughout these generations has been real. The blacks have shouldered many causes in the sheriff's office. Back in the 80s, back in the early 80s, what Robert was talking about, when our union first started, I'm not jumping point to point, but when our union first started, it was started because of the racism, discriminatory practices that was leveled against black employees.
But see, I can appreciate that, but I want us to delve a little deeper, because you have to understand, you got people that are listening to this that don't have a clue about what you're talking about. So it's good to put historical context. Talk about some of those racist experiences that led you to create these organizations. Why did you need to create these? I know you just mentioned about what the major said, but let's talk about some, of these scenarios that you have witnessed or yourselves experienced.
Well, in retrospect, some things happened, whereas you had white employees who was referring to African American inmates as niggers in front of black employees.
Exactly.
And Robert can expand on something. They would call inmates the N-word in front of African American employees. And then you had a situation where, and Robert was there as president at the time, where a lady accused a black deputy of sexual assault on the free will side of the jail. You have the free will side with people visitation area, then you have the lockdown side. They came over, some white detectives came over and rounded up 20 plus black men, escorted them down to cell blocks and took photographs of them, all shapes, colors, and sizes, because of this one complaint.
In the cell block.
In the cell block, while inmates watched.
And that's not
Robert, how about you as president during that time, and you being in law enforcement for some time? Can you talk about various experiences that you heard about or witnessed yourself?
Who you were asking me?
Yes, Robert.
Okay, yeah. One of the things that they were talking about. I mean, we get these harsh punishments that the African American would receive as deputies when they did something wrong, and you have our white counterparts would do something twice as bad, but maybe get a slap on the wrist. That was the common theme. But one of the things that people don't realize, that one of the ways they tried to keep us out is with this test that they would give. And they had two tests. There's one it's a psychological testing, one for blacks and one for whites. And so when they wanted to fail a person, that it was alleged that they would give them the white test, the psychological test. So, and that's one of the reasons why that lawsuit came about, because they were doing the tests unfairly to African Americans. So the fact that we got beat down a lot, as far as it's kind of like the system. They want to get you in the system so you can't vote, so you can't have any rights and things like that. So when they get all these things on you, that's one way they try to get rid of you, about putting these things down. You got suspended, you got this, you got a letter, and they keep putting this stuff in your files, and then they get rid of you, and then they got justification because they have a file on you, even though white deputies did way worse and got less punishment for the things that they would do. But not only that, we're talking about, like one of the things I did when I was president, I would always let them know, like, for instance, they used to not let the deputies go to the bathroom during their work period. And they
wait a minute. What? Say that again.
They would not allow the deputies to go to the bathroom, black deputies, to go to the bathroom. And so I wrote a letter to I think it was Thomas, and told him, these deputies are not allowed to go to the bathroom, they're not being relieved. And so when I told them I was going to expose this to the media, then they finally did something. But for a long time, they would do nothing. I even went to.
Wait a minute, I'm confused. How can you stop a grown man or a woman from going to the bathroom? I don't understand.
Well, you're in a pod, and you can't leave that pod because there will be no deputy over the prisoners. So you can't leave that pod or be dereliction of duty. So you have to stay there until somebody relieve you. But they never would send people to relieve you.
Wow.
You know, yeah. So
Wow.
those are the kind of things that we had to face on a day-to-day basis. And then and we can't get in because they're going to disqualify you as a mental deal for those tests. And it's just, and you have to understand too, when I was out there, there were only 2 deputies on patrol, black deputies. Three. One in the morning, one in the evening, and I was on nights. 3 black deputies, that was it. And then when we called for backup, for backup and everything, it was very difficult to get white deputies to back you up. So you were, and as a matter of fact, I had that to happen to me at a club. And so I ended up getting transferred to another district because of a black supervisor saw what was going on, that he was out there and he had a little pull. So he got me in another district because they don't back black officers or deputies back then. And I'm sure that some of the things that happen now, that I know that there's something that's going on in the patrol with the motorcycle, the motorcycle area, where you have people that are in charge that are racially prejudiced, and they want them to. I had a deputy wanted one of the captains or lieutenant ordered him to write up a black female about a motorcycle, and guess what? She was not in. She was in compliance, and the sergeant was trying to tell the captain that she has not broken any type of policy, but yet they still want him to write her up. And those are the type of things. And then if you don't do it, guess what? You're not the right Negro we want in this position, because we want you to do certain things to African Americans, and you're online with us. I even had a captain to try to get me to do that when I worked at the sheriff department. And I told him I couldn't do that. I'm not going to write somebody up simply because he's following orders, actually, because they wouldn't he wouldn't go in the tank if it was just by himself. And they was ordering him to do it, but the policy says don't do it. And so he would do it, but they can still get you for not obeying the command. So it was all kind of difficult things that we were facing. And let me say this too, and this might be something a lot of people don't like, but when our politicians that we have out there, we need their support. And I don't feel like we got enough support, because one of the things that we would tell our politicians that, look, this guy is not for us. When Cleveland Hagan was running as a Democrat. So why are we telling our people to pull the level straight Democrat when this guy is a stone racist and everybody knew it? That doesn't make sense.
And you know, Robert just triggered my thought. You know, when Cleveland Hagan ran for sheriff against Jack Hurd, we also had a guy by the name of T.R. Coney.
That's right.
That ran for sheriff. Now, T.R. Coney came in 3rd place during that time, which forced the runoff between Jack Hurd and Johnny Cleveland Hagan. Well, T.R. Coney decided to support Johnny Cleveland Hagan.
Mm-hmm.
And T.R. Coney had a massive support of the black community, because T.R. Coney was the first black U.S. Marshal in the Southern District. So
T.R. Coney was a black man.
Yes.
Yes, T.R. Coney was a black African American man who was one of the first, if not the first, U.S. Marshal for the Southern District of the United States. Now, T.R. Coney supported Johnny Cleveland Hagan in the Democratic runoff against Jack Hurd. Well, what T.R. Coney brought was the number of the African American communities that supported T.R. Coney. So with that case, Cleveland Hagan beat out Johnny Cleveland Hagan beat out Jack Hurd, and propelled him into the runoff, to the general election that November, which he won. Now, whatever deal was cut, T.R. Coney became one of the first black major in the Harris County Sheriff's Office. But he didn't last long, Jeff. He didn't last long. And Robert, you may correct me. T.R. lasted about how long? About 8 months?
About a year. I would say give him a year.
Okay. Granted, granted, Jeff, what Robert said earlier about what Johnny Clevenhagen said about a qualified major. Well, he had to do something for Coney because the political deal was cut. Okay? So he brought him in, but he didn't last long. A year or so, he wound up firing T.R. Coney. He was gone.
So wait a minute. So what I'm hearing you say is that in order to get the support of T.R. Coney, a black man who had the support of the majority of the black community, he cut a deal. Yeah. And say, hey, look, I'll give you my support if you put me in this particular role or give me a position of power. And he promised him that he would give him that position of power and basically cut his throat, eventually because he sold out in order to get a position, self-motivation and self-interest. I don't need you to say that. I'll say that because that's what I hear you say.
That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was.
I don't know if he promised him, but he was the major.
Come on, Smokey. You know he promised.
Well, I don't know what kind of back door deals were cut.
Come on, Smokey. You already know how it went. Why you gonna get up on this program and act like you don't know how it went?
Well, hey, if you want to admit it, I will. That's exactly what happened.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Robert. Come on now, let's keep it 100. You know exactly how.
I'm keeping it 100. I'm keeping it 100. I just know that TR didn't last long when whatever process went on to make him a major.
You must have had him over your house for smokes and cocktails last weekend. That's why you don't want to talk about. That's why you don't want to tell the truth, Smoke. Come on now.
Well, Johnny Clevenhagen came to my house. I'm gonna run out. If Johnny Clevenhagen came to my house, I'm gonna run out of there.
And the sad reality is, T.R. Coney is one of many that have done the same thing against our community and have supported or encouraged us to support someone that we knew did not have the best interest of African Americans at heart, but because of I ain't gonna say our because I don't fall in that category, because of their influence and their seeking power or positions or to curry favor or to get a contract or whatever the case may be, they sold out their community. They did what they had to do to get a personal, selfish hookup, not so much to benefit the overall community. And so it really disturbs me, but it's not surprising to me to hear you share that story because it happens more often than not just at the Harris County Sheriff's Office.
Right.
But the thing too, T.R. Coney knew Johnny Clevenhagen because at one point T.R. Coney was a detective in the sheriff's office in the early 80s. So he kind of knew him. I assume through their professional working together in the sheriff's office. But even now, Jeff, I get a lot of naysayers talking about, Smokey, why are you bringing this up about the African American sheriff? I mean, you would think that people of color would join in wholeheartedly and say, hey, we support that idea. We support that idea of, hey, in 187 years, there's never been a sheriff appointed. And granted, all these sheriffs, 30 sheriffs, all these sheriffs weren't elected. A lot of them was appointed.
Right.
I mean, when Adrian Garcia left to run for mayor, he was Ron Hickman, a white Republican constable, was appointed to replace a Democrat. So it can't be that, there was opportunity for Mr. Hickman to win, but he didn't win because he was beaten by Ed Gonzalez in the general election. But the point is, there are so many caveats as to why these naysayers are coming with all kinds of things. Well, it ain't no black. It could LBG never have been a sheriff, or this never been a sheriff. This race has never been a sheriff. But those people did not shoulder the racism and bigotry and disparate treatment that blacks
experienced
during that time. It wasn't. We were on the front lines. It wasn't. Robert was on the front lines. Perry Whitman was on the front lines. Shannon Powell was on the front lines. Robert Ambry was on the front lines. Shelby Stevenson was on the front lines. Joe Williams was on the front lines. Robert Connors was on the front lines. A lot of these guys were on the front lines that was experiencing these calls for this disparate treatment and this racism that flourished under these Republican sheriffs.
Oh, well, no, hold on. Not just Republican sheriff.
Well, Cleveland Hagan changed over parties. I think when they saw the Republican wave coming on, he changed over parties. He voted as a Democrat, but he changed over to Republican.
My point is simply that there are racists in both parties, and it ain't just.
And you are correct. You are correct.
Right.
It ain't just
I just said Republican parties at the time. I said that because under Jack Hurd, he was a Democrat. A lot of stuff occurred. Under Johnny Cleveland, who was a Democrat, a lot of stuff occurred. And under the Republican sheriff, Tommy Thomas, a lot of things occurred. So I'm not just limited only to Republicans. I want to say that, Jeff, I'm not limited only to Republicans, but Democrats also.
Right. So listen, going into the chat, one of the viewers asked, what was the result of the lawsuit? It was a lawsuit mentioned. What was the result of the lawsuit? So
we actually, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go right ahead, Robert.
We actually won that lawsuit, and what happened was that the sheriff, a lot of the people that were discriminated against, who was on the lawsuit, they were either given their job, they had a chance to either accept the job with the sheriff department, or they had to pay them. I don't remember the amount. There was an amount they can get either the amount of money that was asked was settled, or they can come back and get the job.
Yeah, it was money offered to people it was money offered to African Americans who had applied in Browns. You can take some money, or you come back, or you can come to work here, and all that stuff. And I'll tell you this: during the fight, and Robert let you know, Sheila Jackson Lee was probably one of the only politicians that stood out front and said, "I am with you guys." During that time, she made a lot of leeway in us trying to get equal rights, or to end this bigotry stuff. And the lawsuit also, it piggybacked to help inmates. I think it was a Birdie lawsuit, I think, came out of that thing. But in our lawsuit, it opened up ASLD. It opened up opportunities for African Americans, Browns to join in and be treated equally when it came to applicants who applied, when it came to employee rights, and also with the Birdie suit expanded to inmates, allowing inmates to have certain rights as well.
Right.
Because it was a piggyback on that.
So as a result of the lawsuit, would you say that lawsuit changed the whole dynamics of the Harris County Sheriff's Department as it relates to African Americans? Did things change for the better? How are things now?
I can't speak to now because I'm not really there, but now I know, talking to the sheriffs there, Adrian Garcia came in and did a good job as far as it was race issues. He would really get out in front and center. Ed Gonzalez, Sheriff Gonzalez, the same thought. He would get out front and center. And I know I got an email from a employee one day that it was a white lieutenant that was referring to inmates as the N-word in front of black employees. She was disturbed about it, that she was so disturbed about it that she quit. And I immediately called the sheriff, and during that time, the chief deputy, and the sheriff was so adamant about investigating this thing and getting to the bottom of it. Because one thing he told me, I do not allow this in my department. So we still have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go when it comes to appointments, when it comes to transfers, when it comes to people getting good jobs as far as African Americans getting in leadership roles. Grady's a caveat of one of those things that Ed Gonzalez, he's over there and he's a captain over there in a specialized division. So, we can't fix this thing overnight. We've been trying to fix it since 1981 when the league first started. And now we in 2021, we still not fighting the stuff as we fought back then. It's no more black dolls placed in your locker. There's no more Dixie jokes 13 nigger jokes. It ain't none of that stuff no more that was placed in your locker. Or it's no more tar baby dolls and all that stuff placed around the sheriff's department. There's no more pictures of Dr. King on Dr. King's birthday with a target drawn on his head and all that stuff. There's no more of that, right? There's no more of that. Because a lot of that was ended as we evolved to new sheriffs, progressive movements, and stuff like that. So, but Dr. King said the time is always right to do the right thing. We've all come from different shifts, but we're on the same boat now. Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. And I say that because in this push for an African American sheriff, we want people to understand that it's not black nationalism, it's not black racism, it's about black empowerment, because what we have endured over the years. And we want them to understand that. We're not saying, hey, black man got to be this, black man. We're just saying in this choice, the Commissioners Court can make the difference, can make history together. We all can make history, Jeff, by appointing the first African American.
Well, you know what, gentlemen, I want to kind of take a different direction here for just a second. And Grady, your name was mentioned as someone that is a qualified African American to be thrown in that hat to be considered. But I kind of want to talk about the current climate in not only this country, but here in Harris County. Crime is on the rise, murders are on the rise. And of course, there's this challenge between the community engagement and law enforcement, particularly with people of color. And you have a lot of individuals that are on edge. There's this push to quote unquote defund the police and law enforcement and all these things, which, of course, I think that overall message was kind of hijacked and taken in the wrong direction as to what people really meant about defund the police. But I guess my question to you all three, and I'll start with you, Grady, is with the current climate the way it is, what difference would it mean to have an African American sheriff at the helm of the Harris County Sheriff's Office when you have so many challenges that we're experiencing in the community? Would it make a difference at all? And if so, tell us how.
Okay, I think it would certainly be because number one, it would give the community a sense that that we are as a county, diversified, and that when it comes to those black and brown encounters with the law enforcement, with the community, they'll have someone at the top of the ham that can relate to the type of experiences that have happened in the past. And so that, in my perspective, it would give the communities that a sense of, okay, we have African American sheriff or a sheriff of color, and he or she could really relate to the community issues that we are currently seeing across the across America, so to speak.
Okay, Robert, same question.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of some of the things he said. You have to get people in spots who can relate. Everything comes from the top. That whole climate thing comes from the top. And if you have a sheriff that's trying to be fair, being fair to everybody, people can see that, and it's trickling down to the truths. And I think that's one of the basic things that we don't have, because we still have. I won't say we don't have, but it's improving. But you still have some old heads that have that old mentality that's trying to push that on some of the new deputies, and I don't mean black or Hispanic. So and some of that old stuff is still coming up when it comes to decision making. And let's be realistic. Most people feel comfortable with people that look like them, but we have to stop doing that. We have to look at education. We have to take classes so people can know, because everything, what's good for white America might not be good for Black America. What's good for Black America might not be good for Hispanics, and so on and so on. But there's a certain order that we have to follow. And that means everybody follow those orders the way that will benefit the whole group, not just one group.
Smokey.
Well, HPD Troy Finner is an African-American chief that is changing the narrative of policing in the city of Houston. Troy is reimagining police on how we enforce the laws in our community. Our country and our county is in a pivotal moment, which is presenting opportunity to change the image of law enforcement. Not defunding, but reimagining the criminal justice system in retrospect to bond reform, progressive and conservative challenges of policing by bringing all communities together. We, if an African American is selected in retrospect, it'll challenge the racism that still lingers in the departments. Don't think it ain't went nowhere, because it's still there, Jeff. It'll challenge the disparate treatment in these departments. It'll challenge the discriminatory practices in these departments. And I have to rely on Chief Finner when he said that I will not allow racism or racists to be in my department. And I think that African-American men and women are qualified to lead. I mean, we asking for an opportunity. That's all we asking for. If we don't make progress by standing on we stand on the sidelines, whining and complaining, but we have to make progress to implement things that gives us Black empowerment. Okay, so I mean, regardless of the ethnicity involved, we still all have challenges of that's facing our communities. And my thing is that, on my watch, I would love to see, and Robert and the guys that came before me who fought against this disparate treatment, the racism, the bigotry, people who fought against people like Carl Borchers, people who were known racists in the department. I think the department and the commissioners owe it to us to at least hear what we have to say, and to immediately and importantly consider what we're requesting them to do. And I'm asking all people in the community to join in. I'm asking all politicians, whether you're Black, brown, or white, to understand that we would like to see this opportunity happen in Harris County. And one thing we do, Grady is one of our members, and we support Grady for that position. Not only because he's our member, but we support him because he is qualified to lead. He's been there 30 years. Who's more qualified than the person who's been there 30 years, a master's degree from University of Houston, a master's degree from Texas Southern, a Bachelor of Science degree from University of Houston, a Jack Yates.
Uh-oh, wait a minute now. Wait a minute. Hold on. He got my vote. You know what? He'll be the first Jack Yates alumni. Sure. I mean, Troy Finner is a Madison High School alumni. Now you going back to TW now, but you going backwards now. I went to Forest River. I'm talking about the South Side, all right? I'm on the North Side, but I'm talking about the South Side because my folks on the South Side. I'm just teasing, man. But I'm just saying, Jeff, that I mean, we have the opportunity to make history. I mean, when President Obama ran for office, I was one of the first people who say, "Hey, I met Obama back in the 80s with Jesse Jackson in Chicago when I used to work for Jesse Jackson Security, doing one of the conferences. And he was he's a sharp young man. Obama was a sharp young man. I met his wife at one of the conferences. And then when he started running for president, everybody said, "Well, who's this guy Obama? Who's this guy Obama?" I said, "Well, I know Obama. I'm supporting Obama." And everybody said, No, Hillary Clinton, man, Hillary Clinton. I said, "Man, I'm riding with Obama. We can make history with Obama." And what happened? We made history because, yes, we can.
was the chant of the day. Yes, we can. And you know what we did? We did. So I refer that chat over to now. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Let's make history together.
So going back to because I've had some discussions. Many of you know I am an elected official as well, but also I'm in the media, and so I get a lot of information, and a lot of people feel liberty to talk to me about various things. Some of it I just tell them, no, I don't. You might not want to tell me that, but many times, I find myself having discussion and conversation. One of the discussions and conversations I had is, there's this and some of you brought it up earlier about this black versus Hispanic or black versus Latino thing, and how this conversation about a potential African-American sheriff is kind of a slight against the Hispanic or Latino community, which you all indicated is not. But and I agree with that. But there's been this conversation about well, we can't give them a black Harris County sheriff because we done already gave them a police chief, and we done already gave them now just here recently another African American superintendent in HISD, and so all of these various high profile positions are being given to African Americans. Not going back to the fact that they're qualified or whatever, just like Dr. Grenita Latham was qualified and they didn't give it to her, but they brought in this African American male, and so now there's this push like, well, if we gave you these positions because we're in a position of power to make these decisions and determinations, then we can't give you an African American Harris County sheriff. So what do you have to say about that? Grady, we'll come back to you.
Well, in those positions, like when you say, okay, the police, okay, there have been black police chiefs in the past. There have been black HISD superintendents. All the positions that you spoke of, I mean, there have been, we started this conversation off. It's been 185 years. And then there has never been a black appointed or elected sheriff. And that in itself speaks for itself. So it's not like they are giving us anything when it comes to the sheriff office. We are speaking of 185 years. There has not been a black elected or appointed sheriff. And all those other positions, I repeat, all those other positions that you spoke of, there has been. So they haven't gave us anything when it came to the sheriff office yet. And then I don't think they are giving it to us. I think we've earned it. It's not about them giving us anything. We have earned the right to be, to have a black or African American sheriff in this position. We've earned that right.
Robert.
I'm going to say something a little bit. I totally agree with Grady, but I know that there is a rift between Hispanics, a little of a rift between Hispanics and black. I remember when Chief Contreras from HPD was running for sheriff, and there was a black FBI agent that was running, but I was supporting Mr. Contreras because I just thought he was the better candidate. And a lot of blacks were asking me, well, why are you supporting him? He's Hispanic. I would always relate to them, yes, but he's better qualified than the other guy, even though he was qualified too. And so and I can see the Hispanics are saying, well, y'all had all of this. Now it's time for us to have this. But it's not about the Hispanics or the blacks. It's about the people. And I think we all should get away from the Hispanic thing and the black thing, because the Hispanics and black are the poor people. I mean, we are all poor. And so why is that we are arguing about or having misgivings about these positions that are not ours? It's for the benefit of the people, not a certain people. So we need to work closer together as far as being African American and being Hispanic or whatever. We need to work closer together and quit thinking about our race and think about the people. And we all come together, but that seems to be a challenge right there to me.
Well, I mean, I agree with you, Robert. In a perfect world, that would be ideal. But let's face facts. The fact of the matter is there is a rift. in many instances, and there is a focus on, it's our time, or it's my time, and so I was in a meeting where I heard prominent Latino leaders bragging about how they were at the head of all of these major institutions. HISD at the time had a Hispanic superintendent in Carranza. The airport system had Mario Diaz. You had at the Port of Houston, you had the chair of the port at that time was a Hispanic female. You had in Metro, I want to say it was Gilbert Garcia, whatever, that was the head of as chairman of that. And so all of these various positions, and nobody wants to lose power. Nobody wants to lose influence. And so realistically, as much as we don't or shouldn't focus on race versus the best qualified, because I'm totally in agreement with you, Robert, that should be how we look at the world and how we should look at these various positions and spots. But reality wise, when it comes to those voting booths and when it comes to decisions, that doesn't always shake out that way. Smokey.
Let me chime in. 89% of African Americans voted for Ed Gonzalez. 89%.
What percent?
89% of African American voters voted for Ed Gonzalez. I talked to Carol Robinson, that's the numbers he gave me. Surpassing the Hispanic vote, I think there were maybe 18% voted for him. A lot of Hispanics voted Republican. But it's not, if you think about, back in the days, Cesar Chavez was American Labor Union person and a civil rights activist and fought for immigration workers. The fight was joined in by black ministers when he did the hunger strike. They passed across to the black ministers who joined in their fight. Throughout the time in history, Hispanics and Jews have always joined in the fight for human rights and civil rights. Now, we got to understand this. We have to learn and do it. When Ben Reyes was city councilman and Mickey Leland was alive, they formed the Black and Brown Coalition group. Mm-hmm. They formed to have structure in the not only the Hispanic community or Latino Hispanic community, but the black community. And I said, Mickey Leland said, hey, most Hispanics will support me in my race than black folks. And Ben Reyes saying, hey, most blacks will support me than Hispanic folks in my district. So it ain't about a fight, but we got to learn to trust each other. Otherwise, we can't live in true harmony. I mean, we have to learn to trust that and remember that we are voting in mass numbers for Democratic candidates. Okay? And it ain't about a war between the blacks and the browns and the whites, the blacks and the whites, or whatever. It's about an opportunity to make history with a qualified black male or female, which our choice is Grady Castleberry, but it's about an opportunity that can change the historical history of this department. Imagine, like when it was something happened, I can't think about. I was talking to Jesse Jackson one day, and he was telling me about how Bull Connors would turn over in his grave if a black sheriff was placed in his position. So I'm just saying that we're not trying to make this a divisive campaign or divisive appointment. Only thing we're asking for is an opportunity to appoint an African American in over 187 plus years of that department. Okay, and that's all we're asking for. That's all I'm asking for. That's all the Afro-American Sheriff's Deputy League is asking for. Robert Connors from the grave, Joe Williams from the grave, Shelby Stevenson from the grave, and all the people who came before me who lost their jobs fighting for fairness, fighting against disparate treatment. And I'm a son of a preacher, man, so I'm gonna sit down and let somebody else say something.
Well, we need to pass the offering plate. Let's talk about the reality of where we are here. And I understand that there's this push, but the power lies in the hands of the Commissioner's Court. And assuming that Ed Gonzalez, who was tapped by President Joe Biden to head of ICE is confirmed by the Senate and takes over the role as director of ICE, that position will be open, and that position would then need to be appointed by the Commissioner's Court of Harris County, which currently has 3 Democrats, 2 Republicans. The 2 Republicans are white males, and you have an African-American male Democrat, you have an you have a Hispanic male Democrat, and you have an Hispanic female county judge. 3-2, assuming that the Democrats would vote for a Democrat and the Republicans would vote for Republicans. 2 Hispanics, 1 African-American. So at the end of the day, you have to understand that if it comes down to qualifications versus race, then we'd have to stack everybody up and look at the resumes. But if it comes down to that, hey, I got to take care of, because these individuals are going to be up for election, particularly the county judge. So there's going to be a lot of pressure, I'm sure, put on that county judge if they want to seek re-election to possibly appoint a Hispanic. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but we can keep it 100 and real and realize there's a lot of pressure being, I'm sure, placed on them in order to get support for potential re-election, which I have every indication that Lena Hidalgo is going to be running for re-election as the Democratic candidate for Harris County judge. So, I think that that's important to state. Going back up here, one of my people in the chat, Toussaint Louverture, interesting name. One of my historical heroes says it will depend on the man and how much he has a desire to change the department, and does he have the necessary subordinates to carry out his mission. Another one of our viewers, Rosalind Murphy Caesar, said, yes, I agree. The guy just retired from the sheriff's office a few months ago. I know someone who is black that just retired from the sheriff's office a few months ago, high ranking. So, some of the points that was made earlier, she was referring to. So what do y'all have to say about that as we close our conversation on today? Relative to the Commissioner's Court.
Well, I understand this, Jeff. Can't nobody win without the African American vote in Harris County. If you're a Democrat, can't nobody win without the African American vote. Okay? And I'm gonna say this. If in March or next general election, if there is nothing on top of that ballot to bring the African American community out, they're not gonna come out. I don't see anything tangible to make them come out. And what could help in bringing the vote out is an African American who sits at one of the top law enforcement seats in Harris County. That'll arouse it, like when Obama ran, the first black president. And, you had lines that were circling around the building. And if we get Castleberry appointed or a female appointed, then I think that their leadership will be important. Their leadership will bring out many African Americans who support the idea of changing history after 187 years and 37 years of no appointment for an African American.
Right. I'll let you have a few quick final words, Robert and Grady. Go start with you, Robert.
Okay, I just wanted to say that, yeah, Smokey, it's important that we get the women involved, because as we know that I still think it goes on that the women outvote, the black women outvote black males 2-1, I think. And it's important that they get involved, invite Mr. Castleberry to some of the events and talk to him face to face and see what he's really all about. But we definitely have to come together as a community.
Yeah, Grady, real quick.
Okay. Yes. I certainly piggyback on what Smokey said. I do believe, and this is no slight against black, white, or or Hispanics, that if there is a black candidate or sheriff that's at the top of that ticket, it will incite the black community. And all of the politicians, they do court the black vote because they know they need that to get over the hump. And I just hope that Commissioner's Court make their decision. And certainly, I'm hoping that it's me. But you are correct. It is the power of three.
All right. Well, hey, listen, I want to thank you, Smokey Phillips. I want to thank you, Mr. Robert Amory. I want to thank you, Mr. Grady Castleberry, JY. JY's on.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I want to thank
One thing, Jeff, before we leave.
You can't take over my show. Hold on.
I just want to ask one thing before we leave.
Go ahead, brother.
With constitutional carry coming in September 1st, I would really like you to do a show on educating young folks on gun carrying. And I like to come back with some guys who maybe from the ATF or something to talk about gun safety when it comes to constitutional carry.
Consider it done. I appreciate that. A great idea, man. And I definitely have you and those individuals back on. Great point, man. Thank you, gentlemen, again for being on Real Talk Junkies. And I appreciate you. We'll have you back on soon. All right, guys, that'll do it, man. We're about to get up out of here. Your boy Jeffrey L. Boney, another hot edition of Real Talk Junkies. Make sure you tune in next Wednesday, 12 noon. We'll be talking about whatever you want to watch, whatever you want to listen to. You know it's going to be hot. It don't matter what we're talking about. Make sure you tune in to me, Real Talk Junkies. Visit the forwardtimes.com site, jeffreylboney.com. And don't forget, don't argue with me. Pick up the book today. Pre-sale. Holla.